Hi, this is Eric Tars, Human Rights Program Director at the National Law Center on Homelessness and Poverty, reporting live from Day 2 in Geneva with the Universal Periodic Review of the United States by the UN Human Rights Council. Today was our main event for the housing rights issues I'm concentrated on, and I'm glad to say it went really well. The panel started with an overview of the housing situation in the U.S. and why it's important. Even before the current housing crisis in the U.S., 3 to 4 million people every year experience homelessness, and nowhere in the U.S. can a person working full-time at the federal minimum wage afford a one-bedroom apartment? Why is it that when Wall Street bankers come to Congress, they can suddenly find trillions of dollars, but when we ask for more funding for housing, they say their pockets are empty? Why is it when a homeless person asks for change on the street, he can be arrested and thrown in jail at a cost greater than a shelter bed, but when we ask for those shelter beds, they say there isn't funding? Next, Deborah Burton of the Los Angeles Community Action Network gave her personal perspective on housing rights.
My work and personal experiences in housing are intertwined. I lived in public housing for many years. I raised my son there, and I know firsthand the dire need for the government to provide this housing directly. The U.S. has been backing away from the obligation for the past 25 years.
Then Sally Booker of the Center on Housing Rights and Evictions gave an international perspective.
The United States really is an outlaw nation when it comes to international human rights. Some rights, yes, the United States does embrace them and champion them. Some, but it's very selective. It's like human rights a la carte.
Finally, Tyler A. Chase of Larage Productions introduced a segment of her upcoming film, The Serfdom of Ken.
I was working on a project and met an incredible man who was undergoing a terrible calamity whereby his house was being taken away from him in the most unusual way, that he was arrested and just his whole family torn apart. And my life changed because I naively thought we had human rights and actually said to him, well, what about our human rights? And he said, we don't have human rights. So I set about trying to find out.
The panel concluded with some words about what it is we're fighting for. The U.S. Human Rights Network, called Take Back the Land, who's been conducting civil disobedience actions, constructing tent cities, doing housing takeovers all across the U.S., and their executive director, Max Remo, said in an interview once that interviewer was asking him, isn't what you're doing illegal? Isn't moving people into these empty homes that they don't own, isn't that illegal? And he said, well, 40 years ago, it would have been illegal for me to sit on the same seat as a white person on the bus. We didn't think that law was just. We didn't think that law upheld human rights. It's the same with the laws that say it's okay for people to be homeless when there are empty houses that could be housing them. That's the difference that human rights makes. That's why we want a right to housing. And that's why we need the U.S. to be held accountable to that right here this week in Geneva. So thank you all for your attention, and let's go out there and make some change. Despite the great turnout, few foreign delegates attended, and no members of the U.S. delegation attended, which was very disappointing. The other main NGO event today was a panel on reproductive and sexual rights. Cindy Suhu from the Center for Reproductive Rights introduced the panel.
A human rights approach requires for the government to be doing more to make sure that people have access to healthcare services and not less.
Thompson of the Woodhull Foundation followed with a discussion of sexual rights.
But we believe at Woodhull that sexual rights are important for all people and are a fundamental aspect of all people's human identity. Sexual rights guarantee each person the right to express their gender and sexuality, fundamental aspects of human existence and identity without limitation, as well as the right to form or not form relationships and families of our choice.
Christina Finch of Amnesty International USA discussed maternal mortality.
The right to health, including health care, and preventable maternal mortality violates a woman's right to health. The vast majority of maternal deaths are preventable, which is what makes maternal mortality a human rights issue. Women are not dying of diseases we can't treat. They're dying because societies have yet to make the decision that their lives are worth saving.
The rest of the day was spent lobbying other country delegations, more of which will continue tomorrow, along with other side events on political repression, as well as our main U.S. Human Rights Network side event covering the full range of civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights. So tune back in tomorrow, check out our website, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks and good night from Geneva.